to the mindful journey. Now, listeners, today I want to start with a simple truth. The child we were once, it doesn't disappear. The younger version of us, the one who longed for safety, care, and unconditional love, still lives within us. And in times of chaos and unpredictability, it is often that inner child who feels the storm most intensely. Welcome back, listeners. And our guest today, Vandana, knows this journey deeply. Growing up in a dysfunctional and emotionally turbulent home, she transformed her pain into purpose, becoming a healer, teacher, and guide for countless others. She helps people recognize and reparent their stressed inner child, showing us that healing isn't about erasing the past. It is about learning how to hold it with gentleness in the present. So, as we sit together, me, you, and Vandana, I invite you to lean in, soften your breath, and open your heart because this conversation isn't just about psychology or theory. It is about you, your story, and the possibility of giving your inner child the care they have always deserved. So, Vandana, welcome to the show, and I'm really, really honored to have you here with us.
And I feel the same. I'm super honored and excited to be with you, Sana, and your listeners. I've already moved beyond this reality because you definitely held such a sacred, safe space to open our hearts. So I'm already there.
That is superb. That is really, really uh, ins- inspiring to start with, Vandana. And let's first try to understand inner child. Like many people hear it and they
Yes.
think that it's just a metaphor. So, for you, what does it truly mean to reparent your inner child?
Well, it's not just a metaphor, but it is a phrase that has caught on over the years. I don't remember exactly who the person is that coined that phrase, but it really stuck. So whoever created it was great at educating and informing us that these parts of our innocent, pure-hearted children of all ages, even back to when we were in utero, pre-birth, th-
Mhm.
those that essence and those soul parts still are residing within us in our heart space, and they can never be separate from us because it is a very important part of us that many of us have forgotten about. So it's really important to pay attention and to, if there was a disruption or disconnection in our relationship where the cords were cut or the bond was broken somehow, we need to reestablish a sense of reconnection and reunion, a sense of wholeness again, because we need those parts of us back to embody our health and well-being and to just be
Yeah,
authentically ourselves. And those are the parts, the curious, calm, adventurous, playful, joyful parts, open-hearted parts, trusting parts, all of this that we have shut down. So this is why the process is so important. We need to spend every day reconnecting with our inner child.
that is beautiful, Vandana. And I, I so much agree with you because um, as we grow up, we mature, or we go through the experiences of life, and especially in today's setting, when we are, like that hamster in the wheel, always going on and on and on, doing, not being. But deep down the line, we want back our childhood. That's why, people so much associate with nostalgia, any song, anything, any book, novel that they have, read or heard during their childhood. There was so much. I mean, at least, personally, I always feel that, dam opening and those emotions gushing out, that how much my childhood I was happy. Um, but
Yes, that's beautiful. And then for people who didn't have an idyllic, nobody has a perfect childhood or perfect parents, grandparents, or adult caregivers, right, that we grow up with. That is especially the best reason to explore that connection, to regain the trust from the parts of us that have left us, or the parts of us that are frozen, numb, or shut down. Because we are one family, so we belong together. And the idea, unfortunately, in our society, in our world, in this paradigm, we are not taught how to reestablish this divine connection, this soulful connection, right? And so this is kind of like I think we're all in the process of unlearning all of the past conditioning and the programming so we can relearn or remember, how to connect with our higher selves, our higher power, and, all those parts of us, that deserve to be revealed, deserve to reconnect with every part of us, right? So it is um it is a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful practice. I call it, taking a gentleness break every day to drop in, like you said, to lean in and to just speak, have conversation, two-way conversation with your inner child at whatever age is hurting the most, whichever age is troubled or traumatized or stressed, one day you can ask to just check in with your 5-year-old, another day with your teenage, 15-year-old self. And you can even go back to the 9 months in utero, and just ask the questions like, how are you feeling? What's happening? What is your experience? What can I do for you? I'm here for you, because we need to, well, we don't need to, but what we can do is meet and exceed the needs of all of the years that our inner children weren't able to have their needs met, didn't have a voice, right? We want to give them back their voice, the right to speak their truth and to express their feelings exactly how they are, and just listen and just hold space and just be there for them. And this is the best therapy in my opinion. Of course, it's good to have a therapist or a healer or a Reiki practitioner that can also support you and guide you, back to your inner child. But really, the work happens on our own at home, and that's why I have these recordings, these inner child meditative recordings, these journeys, right? Where I guide people step by step on exactly how to do that. And I have over 300 different recordings that help people to process their feelings at home, their unhealed feelings. But also, I work with people privately as well. So just wanted to share that because it's so important to ask for support, to ask for help. If you're really struggling, then that most likely means that there's a part of you that is still needing healing and holding and that support system, right? That they never had.
yes, yes, yes. I couldn't agree with you more. And one word that you mentioned is a phrase that, uh, you know, let us express the feelings the way they are. Sometimes
Exactly.
more often we are masking our feelings, we are hiding our deepest emotions. Like the inner one within us. You know, they want to like shout, scream, cry, and I I I should say that I was or I am fortunate enough to have a happy childhood, but let's say, but there are you know people out there. who may.
Yes, many, many people, unfortunately, the percentage is very, very high. And it's probably even higher if the people who are still in denial come out of hiding and release the bondage to the shame and the judgment around, a lot of people forget, because it actually keeps us safe. It's a survival response, but also we make excuses. If we did experience abuse, neglect, trauma, loss, we make excuses for our upbringing and say, well, they did the very best. So we, yes, that's true. They did do the very best, but also we have to remember that this gets passed on from generation to generation, right? And so also hurt people hurt people. So if you have hurt parents or wounded parents, they're going to most likely unconsciously, not intentionally act out, and also hurt and harm or wound you or neglect you or abandon you and all of that, all of the above. So it's very important to accept whatever happened without judging the circumstances. Yeah, they did do their best, um, but but it's very important to just be real, to just be honest and real and say, yes, this happened and I can change that, and I don't have to carry around this heavy baggage with me, right? And these burdens, I can just have a happy life, like no matter what. And just most of all, like forgive myself and, the adults that raised me because they were just really doing their best, even though in many cases it wasn't enough. Right, it wasn't enough. But, again, that means that we're not taking it personally. We're not playing the role of victim, right? And we're firing our inner judge and inner critic, right? Because those are the ones that kind of reverberate the voices of the past, the critical voices, most of all from our parents and adult caregivers, the judgmental, critical, and the those voices that are still happening inside of us, they're basically representations of suppression and oppression and suppression, meaning like we weren't able to express, like you said before, angry feelings or, a sense of unfairness or injustice or just like trying to express how we really authentically felt. We were most of the time silenced, So then we do that to ourselves as adults. You know what I mean? We become our own worst inner critic and inner judge. Yeah. So we need to accept all of those parts. We don't want to push those parts away because every part of us is actually trying to help us and trying to protect us and keep us safe. Yeah. So we need to have those dialogues, those two-way conversations.
That is so right. That is so right, Vandana. And I believe, because this really speaks loud enough for compassion, forgiveness,
Yes.
not judging our own ourselves. And I think once it starts with us, then we embark upon that journey of forgiving maybe our parents, our caregivers, even if they did not do it intentionally, unconsciously they did. And with that, I would also like to, throw some light on your own journey, Vandana, because you
Yes.
have shared about growing up in a toxic environment.
Yes.
Um, and looking at what's happening or what has been happening, we are in midst of wars or uncertainty, we have pandemic.
Yeah.
How does unhealed childhood stress resurface in our adult lives?
That is a wonderful question. Very enlightening. First of all, if I may backtrack a little bit, you mentioned something. You just said, being that it started with us, and I just want to shed some light on that. It actually didn't start these patterns, um, these behaviors of the family interactions, it was passed on to us. So it actually all of our the stuff that's wrong in our lives that we judge and we suppress and hide from the world, it actually was passed on from generation to generation. So we inherited our parents' trauma, our grandparents' trauma, and their childhood trauma as well. It's in our genetics. It's in our cells, it's in our molecules. So, the most important thing to remember is it's not our problem. It doesn't really belong to us. I mean, it was just passed down to us. But once we're aware that, okay, we come out of denial, that's the first step toward healing. And that's what I've been doing for the last 3 years or so. I decided to I created my own adult child platform, my own group with 5 other women. So it was a very small, safe, and supportive, intimate circle of women, and we were practicing the principles of organization, nonprofit. It's called ACA, Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Family Members. So, um, what we did is we practiced. We really went deep, and a lot came up for us, but we had each other as a safe support system, right? So we didn't feel alone, like it was just us. So I definitely invite everyone to do this kind of work. It's not easy, but it is the most rewarding and life-changing. So that's ACA. After a while, I decided that I needed to take a break, but going back to my childhood, I it's like you never when you experience those really rough, harsh beginnings, it's like you never really give yourself permission to even take a break. So I'm just going to rephrase what I said before, but it is an ongoing awareness. It's an awareness of, okay, this is what. So whenever I'm feeling bad or off, I tell myself, like I become my own loving parent, right? The loving, soothing, nurturing parent that I never had, right? Or if I had it, it was inconsistent, wasn't like all the time, like a dependable thing. And so I have to become my own parent, right? And look out for that part of me that's still hurting, that still thinks that the trauma is still unfolding. And
Mm,
when you have a lot of early childhood trauma, um, what happens is most of us disassociate and we disconnect from it. And then when we overreact instead of responding to stressful triggers in our daily lives, um, that is a definite sign. It's a symptom. It's an indication that, okay, what part of me is still acting out, in fight or flight or the fear or freeze response, right? And then you can, have a conversation and tell your inner child it's okay. It's no longer happening. It's not happening now. That was then. You're okay. We're okay, right? In this moment, because we tend to relive the past as if the threat was still happening in the now, right? And that also leads to anxiety about the future. Because if we still feel, even though we know it's not true, we feel that we're in danger or somebody is unsafe or we can't trust them, then that's going to affect the rest of our lives if we don't get a handle on this, right? For me, uh I would say that I had it on both sides. So my mother she was very wounded. She
mhm,
had a lot of abandonment issues. She was actually given away to a foster home when between the ages of 3 and 5, because her mother, this was many, many years ago, so it was a really bad time, and they didn't really support women to be trained for jobs or careers back then. So her mother couldn't take care of her financially. She had divorced her husband at that time, which is also very unusual. So she had no choice. But 2 years later, luckily, she found the means, she remarried, and she got her out. But those 2 years were devastating for my mother. And then it created definitely issues, lot of anger and rage that unfortunately she would take it out on the children or on my father, her husband at the time. So it's kind of like scapegoating, right? And all of that kind of behavior, which was very toxic because as a child, you always blame yourself, like, what did I do wrong? Right. So there was that on my mother's side. Then on my father's side, I have no idea exactly what his trauma was because he never really shared his personal upbringing.
Mhm.
But I'm sure that there was definite childhood trauma, and the way he expressed that trauma, the way he projected that trauma onto my brother and I would be sort of like dismissive, cold, uh, and always sort of acting kind of like we couldn't live up to his expectations.
Mm, mm,
Um, and he would run and hide, and if he was having a bad day, he wouldn't talk about his feelings. So most likely he had that kind of upbringing where he didn't have permission to talk about his feelings, right? And so again, we and also his siblings always thought like, what did we do? We couldn't understand it because the behavior was very dissonant,
mm,
cognitive dissonance. It didn't make sense. There was something very confusing and off. And so, it definitely affected his ability to be a good father, to be present, a present provider, right? A support system to really be emotionally available. He wasn't able to do any of that. So it was very sad. So that was my experience growing up. It's definitely
mm,
affected my brother as well. Not that there were no good times at all. There were some good, happy times, which I'll always cherish and treasure and hold on to. Yeah. But
mhm.
the traumatic acting out behaviors actually overshadowed a lot of the memories where I really have to sit down and try to remember, and hold on to the happy memories with both my mother and my father. And also keep telling myself like it had nothing to do with me, right? And so as a parent myself, to turn this around a little bit, um, I've always pretty much done the opposite of what my mother or father would do. Of course, sometimes, some aspects of our mothers and fathers, will creep in unconsciously because there is a genetic factor happening. But then my son will always let me know, oh, you're reminding me of, this person, his grandmother. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm so sorry. And then I come back to myself like, yeah, you're right. I was acting like her for a moment, very judgmental, very critical and all. So it's been a practice in self-awareness and self-compassion, like we said before.
Wow. I mean, first of all, I highly appreciate that you candidly shared, uh, you know, the specific behavioral patterns that you saw in your mother um, and in your
Yeah.
father.
Yes,
And
it gets passed on. It's not, but it is painful. Yeah. But the thing is, it wasn't conscious, it wasn't intentional. Yeah. That's why it's our job to reparent our inner child and reparent our own children in the physical or grandchildren, right? To embody the qualities like Amma, right? Like of Divine Mother, Sacred Mother, right? Or Mother Mary. This is really, really important. And also like the safe, um, supportive, like sensitive, healed masculine. So we have to be a combination of the best qualities, the highest qualities of divine feminine and sacred masculine, right? So we can mother and father ourselves, right? Yeah. And then we have the energy, the life force energy. Then we have the embodiment of love, we can be love, not give love, but be love. And when you can be love, then you receive love because you are love. Yeah. So that's really important for all of our adult relationships.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And um, I'll come to how our listeners can begin with this, and then about the power of community. But before that, have you ever? Um, I'm very sure it's not going to be, but still, just for keeping it more nuanced. Like, have you? Or how would you respond to this skepticism that reparenting sounds indulgent or self-centered? Like, shouldn't adults just toughen up and move on?
No, definitely not. It's
Absolutely.
it's a process and it's a practice and it does not happen naturally overnight. There is going to be resistance in the beginning. That's why you have to work with a trusted counselor, a healer, a coach, and that's why I call myself an inner child mentor, someone that we feel safe enough to open up and vent and speak our truth and tell the truth, without um because if we don't be get really honest with ourselves, we're going to wind up not only hurting ourselves, but everyone, all the people in our lives that don't deserve that treatment, right? So this is so it's not self-indulgent at all. It's actually compassionate, it's putting our needs as a number one healing priority. Because if we're not healed and we still have these scars and, the pain and the trauma, we're not going to treat others fairly or ourselves justly. So, um, yeah, this is a something that you have to learn. That many of my clients are so willing to learn because they're suffering needlessly in their day-to-day relationships at work, at home, with their friends, with their partners, with their children, with their parents, right?
Mhm.
And the thing is, we take blame completely out of the equation here because
Mhm.
that just makes everything worse. So we're not blaming, we're not playing a blame game or a shame game. We're just kind of coming to terms with what happened and being realistic and practical and, not in the closet about it, right? And that's the only way that we can heal ourselves and each other. And so, if anything, it's the highest act of love, self love, to accept what happened and to move forward, not to get stuck there, and not to act out like we're a 12-year-old rebellious teenager who is always fighting and bullying others and themselves. We want to be the best version of ourselves, and this is how we do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, and also, because you lead healing circles and support groups for adult children. So, what role does community play in calming the inner child compared to what we can privately do, like alone?
So community is everything, especially, since the pandemic, right? So it's not like a new thing, but for adult children in recovery, it's everything. It's not a new thing, but it's everything. The worst thing, the worst way or the biggest way we mistreat ourselves and punish ourselves and sabotage ourselves is when we hide in isolation because we lost trust in ourselves and the world, right? And that's this meaning we're cutting off our relationships with others because, our inner children are still acting out. They're still but they don't mean harm. They're trying to protect us and keep us safe. But living in survival mode and isolation is not, it's not a way to live. It's not like you're living, you're really just surviving. So when you
Mm.
can come out of hiding and join a safe support circle whether it's online, in person, by phone. There are meetings all over the world, so it's not like I'm the only one doing it. But I would say to just find somebody that you resonate with, right? Who can just hold space for you and basically listen, right? Not, and confirm your feelings and, yeah, just hold that safe space for you. But with other people who have been through what you've gone through, when I was in my ACA meetings every Sunday morning, it was so eye-opening because I just felt, first of all, it felt so good to be heard. That's one of the things that ACAers say to each other. I
Mhm.
hear you. Thank you. You are heard. And that's something that most of us were never told when we were growing up. That's why we felt so invisible and we still do as adults, right? So having that support system, I remember hearing stories that were, I felt, a lot harder, than mine, and many of it was physical injuries. For me it was never physical. Doesn't mean that it was less painful, but hearing that, and I was just so inspired by everyone because everyone was so truthful and honest, and they were just, speaking about what happened. So it's like giving your inner child a voice. So listening and speaking and being part of a group where it feels like family, where you feel like you truly belong. And many of us didn't have that growing up. Too many of us didn't have a sense of family, of a safe family, and the feeling of belonging. And so many of us don't feel like we belong anywhere. We don't belong where we live. We don't belong to a group of friends that we feel safe around or that we can even relate to. We kind of feel like an outsider. So that's why it's important to find the right, not just any support system, but the right support system. And that can take a while. It took me a while. It took me a long, long time. It might be easier to find somebody like me or me, just to have some sessions. I actually have packages of sessions because we understand in practical terms that one healing session, one inner child session might not get to the innermost layers of our being, our stuck, suppressed feelings. So I recommend having at least 4 to 6 sessions, but some people like to work with one person privately. They feel more comfortable, like they could let their guards down. Some people feel a little scared by that, and so they'd rather just sit in a group and initially maybe not say anything or share anything, but just listen to the others, which is also very healing. Yeah. So these are the routes, these are the healing paths that you can choose. Or you can just choose to do nothing and live in a bubble and pretend that everything is fine when it's really not, when you just want to cry and scream inside, but you can't. Um, and people who isolate themselves, adult children, also develop a lot of addictions, a lot of fears, a lot of phobias. So I think why not try the healing route, and come back home to yourself and get to know and like merge, integrate all of the beautiful qualities, the joyful qualities of your inner child, the part that ran away because it was just too much and too scary. So there's a lot more I can say about it, but yeah, support systems are everything.
That is so true. That is so true. Ah, beautiful. So Vandana, of course, if our listeners they would like to connect with you and
Yes.
get access to all the wonderful resources that you're providing, what would be the easiest way?
I would love to connect with the right people, people who are serious, ready, willing, able, open, and committed to their healing path, who have tried everything else all the prescription drugs, that sometimes just numb us and suppress our essence. So you've tried everything. You've tried, the Western society route, and none of that worked. You've been to doctors and you still don't feel well. Then I would recommend doing that and just setting up a consultation, a 20-minute complimentary consultation with me to see if we're the right fit, to see if you feel safe and you would like to move forward and learn more. You're curious about how you can heal your inner child and get to know your inner child. So my website is Vandana. It's V like victory, Andana, VandanaLightHealing.com. And on the homepage, you can find the schedule or book a consultation with me. And then I can also get to know you and help you better. You know, maybe I'll recommend one of my inner child programs that you can listen to at your own pace at home. Or maybe I'll recommend to go deeper because I'll sense a readiness on your side, yes, on your side. And then I'll recommend a package of sessions or just to start out with one. And so I have tons of testimonials as well on my website that you can read about, other people who were really struggling and the pain, the stress, the anxiety, the trauma was just replaying. And they were just getting triggered and re traumatized in every moment. And so those are the people that are just at that breaking point, they've hit rock bottom, they're ready. Those are the people that I'd love to meet and connect with because I know I can help you too. So thank you so much for having me on your show, Sana. It was really beautiful.
Yes, absolutely it was. And I believe that you have reminded us that healing, it isn't about pretending that, the past did not happen.
Right.
It doesn't mean that, we have to forget everything. I think it's becoming the parent, the caregiver, the protector, the guide we always needed. And
Exactly.
with compassion, no judgment, and even when the world, is kind of against us or outside, it feels uncertain. So thank you so much, Vandana, for doing this.
Thank you, Sana. I really deeply appreciate you and your listeners and your service in the world. Thank you for your contribution and your energy too. I just want to remind everyone that I do have my podcast on YouTube. So if you visit Vandana Light Healing on YouTube, you can find it. It's called Adult Child in Recovery. That's the name of the podcast. I'm also on Facebook. You can visit my Vandana Light Healing page. You can like my page there. I'm also on Instagram, same name, Vandana Light Healing. And I would love if you have a chance to watch or listen to my Adult Child in Recovery podcast. I would love your feedback. And also, please go ahead and, if you find it, you can send me a like, a thumbs up, and you can subscribe to my YouTube channel at Vandana Light Healing because the more people that are helped, the better our world will be, right? So thank
Mm,
you again.
super, super. And I'll make sure to have all the links in there in the show notes for all listeners. And I uh, would like, as we close this conversation, listeners, I want you to take a deep breath, maybe even place a hand on your heart and ask yourself, if my inner child is listening right now, what do they most need to hear from me? So, thank you to everyone for tuning into this episode of The Mindful Journey. Until next time, may you meet your inner child with patience. May you walk gently with yourself, and may you remember the journey is always mindful, but never, ever alone. Thank you.